Hello, hello, and welcome back to OLIN TV. It's our absolute pleasure to have the brilliant Steve INCE talking to us today. Hello, Steve. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm sure you've got some interesting stories to tell us, so we'll get stuck straight in.
Okay, then. So we'd like to go back to the very beginning, Steve. So could you tell us a bit about yourself growing up and how you got into programming and game design?
Well, I go back a long way.
right at the start.
Yes, sort of. I grew up in the 60s. I'm that old. So computers and the like weren't even, sort of like, well, I suppose the way I thought of. I mean, in science fiction, I read a lot of science fiction. Mm-hmm. So when computers came along, I wasn't in that kind of, oh my God, what do I do kind of thing. It's kind of like it was ingrained into my head through all the science fiction I'd read and things like Star Trek and Doctor Who and stuff. You kind of get into, oh, well, one day we're going to have these wonderful computers. So I just an avid reader, watched anything that was on television, even remotely science fiction, or, sort of anything cartoony and so on. So, when I went to university, I actually studied astronomy and astrophysics.
Oh, really?
So, it's, but it didn't work out as well as I'd hoped. I mean, I didn't get a really good degree. But by then I was already interested in writing stories and stuff like this. But then I kind of put it on a back burner for a while, and got some ordinary jobs like working in a metal refinery, and I was in bingo hall management for a while.
Oh, well. Right. do you know all the numbers and things like that? What legs 11?
Yes. Two fat ladies each year. Yeah. One of the clubs I worked at, there were two fat ladies who used to come in every day, and all the staff just used to refer to them as the 88s. So,
how times have changed. I think it might be a little bit frowned upon if somebody was doing that these days.
But so I didn't actually join the games industry until I was 35.
Oh, wow.
Which is a little over years ago. No, I've been in the industry now 28 years, so it doesn't take much to do the maths and work out what the world I am. But I actually joined a company called Revolution Software back in '93.
Yeah,
and I joined as an artist, and I was doing some background paintings for the game and some sprite animation and things like that. And I'd never used a computer before. Well, I dabbled a bit on a Commodore 64, but I've never used a PC or anything. So sort of like it says, oh well, we better put you on a month's trial. So within a month, I had to quickly find my way around a computer and learn how to use the software that we're using, which is something called Dpaint. And learn how to do sprite animation. So that was fun. But it was actually great fun. And never looked back really. I moved from sort of that art side of things into a producer role, and then onto the writing and design side of things. And then after about 11 years with Revolution, I went freelance, and I've worked for clients all over the world, mostly remotely, which is great. Sort of like some of my clients I've never met. Like this company in Russia, I worked for them on and off for about 5-6 years, and we only ever talked through emails and chat messages and things like this. But they still paid me, which was great.
So you're kind of set up for this new world, then, are you already?
Yeah. I haven't noticed any difference, to be honest. But apart from not being able to see my grandkids,
I know. It's been hard for people, hasn't it? I mean, we were just discussing before the call, just about the new announcements and things like that, and how difficult it's been over the past year, just socialising and things like that. But but anyway, we'll get on to that a bit further down the call. But obviously, we know you for your work on the legendary Broken Sword series. I mean, I used to love those games when I was younger, and I first came acquainted with them, I think, when they came out on the PlayStation 1. But how did those games come about, and were they influenced by any other games before that?
Well, I mean, when I joined Revolution, they were still working on Beneath the Steel Sky. So I was doing some work on that.
Yeah.
And then I started doing some, paintings for Broken Sword, but things change so quickly in games. And originally we were going to do Broken Sword at the same resolution as Beneath the Steel Sky.
Yeah.
And then, it was quickly apparent that, kind of we'd have to change that. So we'd have to, up the resolution to 640 by 480 and go from there. And then, we knew that we wanted a very different style of artwork. And so we brought in some very experienced guys from the Don Bluth studios over in Ireland. They've done tons of, kind of like background, really sort of like famous background work and animation. Worked on tons and tons of really great stuff, and they just added so much, bringing them in. So we changed the style completely. And you look at, kind of like just from that first location screen where George, gets up after, sort of like being blown up. He gets from under the that umbrella, and that screen is just sets the whole tone for the game.
I was gonna say that, Steve, because I remember playing all of these different games, and then I got a hold of Broken Sword, and I remember just being blown away by like how it looked and the fluency of the game as well, and like and how it made you think instead of just like button bashing on other games. I was really I really got into it for a long period of time, and that's what that was one of the questions I was going to mention. Actually, how did he get it looking so like beautiful at the start of the game, if you know what I mean?
One of the things that we did was that, as I said, we got these guys, and they drew all these great backgrounds in pencil. So we scanned those in, and then we coloured them in Photoshop. And that was a huge learning process, because it's kind of like, how do you get the best out of this? So we did everything reasonably high resolution, and then converted it down to 640 by 480. And even though we were only using 256 colours for those screens, because we converted them in a really good way, sort of like you can hardly tell the difference between that and the 24-bit. I mean, there's some areas where you get a bit of dithering and stuff like this, but generally speaking, we did a really good job. And that obviously, sort of, we had to do that because that's what the monitors handled at those time. But we wanted to just make it the best we could. So the fact that kind of like they've been coloured in Photoshop but done in a very kind of painterly way, sort of like helps with that quality. And I think that one of the things that you can say about that game is that although the resolution is obviously a bit old, out of date, the actual style of the backgrounds, I think, holds up quite well. And we also had a really, really good animator, this guy called Steve Oates, who, sort of like he did, most of the, sort of really good stuff in Beneath the Steel Sky. Because with the higher resolution for Broken Sword, he had to kind of like take a bit of a different approach. And he put an awful lot of work in. And then he worked with the programmers to work out, like this 8-directional walk for George. And it wasn't just a case of going, like he does 12-step, or 12 frame, but does a complete cycle in each of these 8 directions. What we did was, or what he did was to kind of like get him to turn on a corner, sort of, and turn off either foot.
Yeah.
So kind of like the programmers would work out a route that was, half footstep, distances, but also at the same time as scaling the character in to make it fit with the perspective of the screen. So the programmers and the animators were doing fantastic things with George's, just with his walk cycle alone. The amount of work that went into that is fantastic. Yeah. And I've such, incredible respect for those guys for all the work they did on it. Mm-hmm. And it was just so smooth. And then the way it tied into like the kind of like odd animations, like lifting the bin off, lifting the lid off the bin and the cat jumping out. The kind of like move from the stand position into one of those specific animations is really smooth and really is down to these guys' hard work.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of attention to details went into it, obviously, to make it look so good and make it so fluid. At the time being in it, was it like a labour of love? Because you must have knew you in the thick of the graft, for want of a better word. So how did it feel to be in that? Because you were like in the middle of this.
Well, I don't think that, sort of like at the time we were fully aware of how special it was. We obviously wanted to do our best. Sort of we're all of that kind of like mentality. We want to do our best for everything. And it was just such a pleasure to work on. But sort of like you don't ever kind of stop and think, oh, this is going to be an absolutely groundbreaking game. Sort of. We knew we were doing things that were different. It's like we used icons instead of choosing from sentences and things like that.
Yeah.
Which most adventures did at the time.
I mean, the Monkey Island franchise and stuff did all that, didn't they? When you had to choose the different sentences and things like that, didn't they?
Well, we did that on Beneath Sealed Sky as well.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything fundamentally wrong with that. Yeah. But you choose a sentence, and then the character says that sentence before you get the response. So you kind of get that sentence twice. So with icons, kind of like what you're asking about. Yeah. But you don't necessarily know what George is going to say until or exactly what he's going to say. But I think that worked well. I think the icons really worked well.
Definitely,
and during conversations, of course, you could ask about everything. Sort of like you had a number of kind of like topics to choose from, but you also had all these things in your inventory that you could ask everybody about. So there was a lot more lines than perhaps sort of was wise, maybe. But people seem to love it.
Yeah. Like I say, when I first played in the games, I just remember them being like the Broken Sword games being almost movie-like, and just being like this, like a. I think when it first came out, I must have been quite young. Like this, is like a proper grown-up game where I really got to think about it, And I love that. I love trying to work it out. But yeah, I mean, have you been involved in anything similar since the Broken Swords series?
Oh yes, I worked on a game called Blond for a French company, and they got in contact with me because, and this was after I'd left Revolution. They got in contact with me because they had an idea. They had some character sketches and a couple of location, drawings, as it were. But they had no story. So they kind of brought me in that. So got me to go over to Paris for a few days, and we thrashed out the outline of a story and stuff like this. And then I came back here and worked on the rest of it. And sort of like I'd kind of wake up more detail and send it off to them. And
sorry,
Steve, there's a lot of main, basic game design in there.
Steve, sorry, will you just repeat the last couple of sentences, please? Just because the
froze a little bit.
The screen froze a little bit. Neil, did you miss out one of your questions? Well, I was.
We've kind of went. No. I was just going to get to it after this sub question. We're kind of going off a tangent because it's fascinating. It's fascinating. Yeah. So, no, it's cool. Crack on with that question.
I'll cut all that bit out in the edit, and then Steve, you can just repeat those last couple of sentences again. That'll be great.
Oh God.
Sorry.
You've disrupted my whole flow now.
Oh, he was in the zone, man, John.
Sorry, mate. We'll put this.
No,
We'll put this in. We'll put this in the
Where was
reel.
So they invited me to go over to Paris, and I spent a few days in Paris while we thrashed out the outline of the story, and then I came home and would work on it in bits and pieces. So I'd work up a bit more detail and send it to them, and they kind of go, "Oh, well, maybe we change this bit," and "Oh, we love this bit," and so on. So you kind of like going back and forth. You just work up the detail. And then, I mean, obviously I was working on the story, but I was also doing a lot of the high level game design, the puzzle design, kind of because adventures have the gameplay so intertwined with the story, kind of it's hard to separate them. So, sort of like the story objectives become gameplay objectives. Like you need to find a way to make a cup of coffee for the guy behind the bar or something. I can't remember exactly what it was now. Oh no, they had coffee, but you were trying to make a cappuccino. That's right. To try and impress this guy. So it's kind of like the story objectives become tied in with the gameplay objectives. So it's difficult not to separate the two. So you have to be able to do both. So Blond was kind of quite, something I'm quite proud of, because previously with like Broken Sword games, we'd done them as a team. There was a number of us, whereas kind of like there was the team in France, but on the writing and design side, it was mostly me, which is a bit scary. But I got nominated for an award for that one.
Oh wow!
So although I didn't win, I lost to Rihanna Pratchett, who is brilliant and deserved the award anyway. But it was great to be nominated.
Of course.
Yeah, good stuff, man.
On that point, you've just mentioned you've got to marry the story and the gameplay together. Is there any sort of, when you get the feedback and maybe people want to take it in a slightly different direction, how would you sort of deal with that? You've got a vision and someone wants to tweak it to fit gameplay. Do you know what I mean? That kind of conflict.
Well, personally, I just deal with it. Kind of, it's one of those things. It's part and parcel of game development. And sort of like you get some writers who are a bit precious about what they do. Kind of like, oh no, we can't make any changes. This is absolutely brilliant. But sort of like with a game, it's not just about the story; it's about the gameplay as well. Sort of, and some games, they're more about the gameplay than the story. And so you kind of, as a writer, you've got to understand your position within the grand scheme of things. So if kind of like if they suddenly say, well, we want all characters to be able to jump with sort of super jet boots or something like this, then you've got to somehow incorporate that into the story. How do they get these jet boots, and kind of like, are there any limitations on them, and this kind of thing. And I don't have any issues with that at all. I mean, at the end, you're out to make a really good game. It's got to be a great experience for the player from both the gameplay and the story point of view. So they've got to kind of go in sync. And if it means changing things or cutting things out, then you've got to do it. I mean, when we did Broken Sword 3, we actually cut out two whole sections of the game because the game was just too big. And you kind of like go, oh God, we've lost all these plot points here. So we then had to kind of like quickly shove them into other sections. And sort of like it was a fair bit of work. But kind of we didn't ultimately lose anything from the story that we were telling. It was still the same story. And I don't know, it isn't necessarily everyone's favorite Broken Sword game, but I enjoyed working on that. And it was the first of the Broken Sword games that I actually did writing on. So that was good fun.
Very good. I'm going to go for a little bit off piste here, because a lot when we first started doing what we do, it was all about music and DJing and things like that. But obviously, we're trying, with it being in lockdown and things like that, we're trying to branch out and more people in like media and the arts and stuff. But we always like to come back to the one question: what kind of music are you into, and what's your favorite album ever?
Oh, bloody hell. I'm into good music.
Yeah, good lad.
First single I bought was Life on Mars by Bowie.
Oh,
yes,
and
banger.
I've been a fan of him ever since. Obviously, we're not going to get any more new stuff, unfortunately, but you know, sort of that's the way of the world. But yeah, I mean, he had a few things that weren't so good, like the Tin Machine stuff. But you know, kind of like, you know, the fact that, you know, sort of even right up to his last, you know, days, he was, you know, thinking so originally. You know, I mean, some of those last songs that he did. You know,
what was that last
incredible.
album called? What came out? Was it Black Star?
Black Star.
Black Star. I love it. I love it. I listened to that.
It's a great album.
And I thought that's so good. I mean, the longevity of the career, what he had, and to still be bringing out music like that in his like final days, you know, it's just absolutely phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah. Whereas you look at some of the people from that time, you know, like Elton John and stuff. And Elton John was brilliant back in the 70s.
Yeah.
And now I don't know, he seems to produce safe stuff.
Yeah.
In my view. You know, so I think that in my view makes Bowie, you know, even more special.
Yeah.
You know. I mean, I love Pink Floyd as well, but you know, kind of, you know, some of the recent stuff that Gilmour has done, you know, he's not a songwriter. Yeah. He's a great musician, but he's not a songwriter.
You know what? With Pink Floyd, one band I never really got into, and I think I kind of missed the bus on them guys. You know, I never got into the but. However, I will go back and try at some point. And,
well, you know, sort of like, you know, in the 70s, you know, like The Dark Side of the Moon was the album to own. And, you know, we went to see them play live at the Nebworth Festival in 1975. And that was just astonishing.
Would have been a great show, though.
Yeah.
They played the whole of Dark Side of the Moon. They played a load of new stuff, because the Wish You Were Here album was just about to come out later that year. And then they played a half-hour version of Echoes, which was absolutely astonishing. You know, and it's just, you know, you sort of like, you don't recover from memories like
that. Of course not. Of course, I'm just a couple more for let you get away. I think, Neil, you've got a couple, haven't you? And then
I've got a couple of off-piste ones, as well as a couple of scripted ones.
Yeah, go for it, man.
Do you ever work any of these musical influences into your writing, into the game creation? This is an off-piste one.
In what way?
I don't know. The kind of, like, obviously Pink Floyd, like, massively proggy. Does it ever sort of inspire various plot points, things like that?
Or like musical clues, you mean? You know, sort
of, stuff like that.
I've not really done that sort of thing. Because there have been games where they've put, you know, kind of music into, you know, kind of musical clues, and you have to kind of like go somewhere and you hear this little tune, it might be half a dozen notes or something like this, then you've got to go somewhere else, remember it, and play it back. You think, oh my God, I'm useless at stuff like that. I love music. I mean, I've dabbled with playing bass guitar and you know, kind of writing my own stuff, you know, using software. But I've not, you know, really taken that into it, you know, sort of. Although, I mean, I do like good music in games.
Yeah.
And I created a game some years ago, which I did I did the whole thing apart from the music. You know, a silly game called Mr. Smoozles Goes Nutso, which you can download for free. I didn't make a fortune off it.
Mm-hmm.
But I got this young guy called Josh Winneberg, and he's brilliant as a composer, and he did all this great music, really kind of like varied, and it just suited the style of the game perfectly.
Yeah,
that was brilliant. And so I'm hoping to use him again on another project. And I think that, sort of like sometimes we forget that music is, sort of, can be a part of the fun when you're playing a game, particularly. I mean, there was a kind of, in the Nutso game, sort of like some of the music was kind of like real kind of slow and dreamy and, a bit spooky. And others was kind of like, kind of thing. And it just, as I say, it just varied so much, and it was great to kind of get that variety, working with the different locations and situations and stuff. And I think it was brilliant.
Yeah.
Sort of. So yeah, hopefully I'll get to use them again and get even more great stuff.
Good stuff. Stevie said that game was free to download. Do you know where we might be able to find that?
I set up this website called Juniper Games, and
sorry, I'm just quickly writing this down.
Juniper-games.com.
Juniper-games.com. Great.
Excuse me. And there's a link on there. You can just download. It's only available for the PC though. But yeah, it's good fun. Thanks for making it.
Exactly, game should be.
It got Game of the Month on the website when it came out, which was quite nice. And lots of people have said how much they loved it. So
good stuff.
The reason I'm asking is because I'm going to go and check it out.
Well, we'll get the links. We'll get the links posted out with the video as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I'll if you have any trouble, let me know, and I'll make sure it's still downloadable. It should be. I mean, it's just on the website. It's only a relatively small file. Yeah. I mean, when I did that, a lot of people didn't have broadband.
Yeah.
So I was trying to keep the file size down. And so, it's about 15 meg, something like that.
Oh.
So I mean, it's nothing really in today's money.
Okay, just cut more. Neil, have you got? I think you got one more left, haven't you?
I've got one more. You want to go? You go, mate. You go.
I was just going to say, obviously, you touched on how you wanted to get the musician in to do something with you going forward on a new project. So I was going to ask, have you got anything exciting in the pipeline going forward?
I've got so many projects on the go at the moment. I'm trying to balance them all. I'm actually writing a book called 201 Things for Better Game Writing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which are kind of like short, sort of like snippets, but all together, kind of it'll, come together as quite a bit of hopefully useful advice that I've drawn from my years within the industry.
Yeah.
I'm also hoping to do another book, which will be a kind of workshop book aimed at school children, basically an introduction to game writing. And that will use Twine. I don't know if you've ever heard of Twine.
No.
But it's a great piece of software that you can download for free, and it just enables you to write, sort of interactive stories. So it's a great kind of introduction into how to think really when you sort of like trying to write interactive stories, and maybe if you want to become a game writer, then this is a good stepping stone.
Okay.
And I mean, I've done workshops in schools, and kids get into it really quickly.
Oh, really?
And sort of it's surprising how quick they almost, I mean, they're rushing ahead of me most of the time, kind of, and it's just great fun, and they'll go, I've done this, come have a look, and it's something disgusting involving farts or something along those lines, because kids love that, writing like that. and it's brilliant. Sort of they can do whatever they want, and it's fantastic. And I really recommend that. And then I've also got, well, I've been publishing books as well. So I've got things like this, which is Reflecting the Light.
That cover's amazing.
Yeah, it looks great.
Wow.
Yes, that's it's a urban fantasy novel. It's 400 pages. Can get it from Amazon. I published it myself. I did the cover. Characters are on the back.
Oh, cool.
All right.
So sort of, and I did a couple of kids' books as well, which you can find on Amazon. But I'm also kind of like doing this game called Crow Girl, which I did some Crow Girl comic pages, and people seem to like them. And then I really got into the character, and I've started developing this story, and done some initial game screens and stuff like that, which I've posted some examples online. It's going a bit slowly because of as I say, I'm trying to balance so many other things, but it's promising, and the people that I've shown the first few locations to have liked it, so want to see more. That's always a good thing.
It's a good sign, isn't it?
Yeah,
hopefully we see
I'm doing it
soon.
It has a little bit of a Broken Sword look in the way that all the locations are kind of like hand drawn on a computer. I'm drawing them directly in Photoshop. I'm using a graphics tablet to draw them. And so there is that, but I'm doing it at very high resolution. I'm doing it at 4K. Sort of, hopefully it'll be a little future proof that way. But it works quite well. Got the character moving about, got some puzzles working, and because Crow Girl is kind of like, is a magical person. She has kind of command of crow magic. Sort of like using crow magic as part of how it works. I mean, it's very much an adventure. But then not only does she use existing spells, she has the opportunity to make new spells. So finding the ingredients to make these new spells and working out where to use them is part of kind of like the puzzle. So I think it works well. So hopefully, I don't know exactly when, but maybe next year I might
fingers crossed
get to a position where I can finish it.
Nice one.
Interesting.
You mentioned before, when I was reading earlier, actually you didn't mention it, that you studied in Newcastle. You may have recognised that we're born and bred Geordies. So what do you remember about our fair city at the time? What was going on? How did you spend your time?
The most memorable thing was the great beer.
Great beer. I can't say anything. I'm sitting here drinking a can of Foster's in a posh glass.
Foster's? Oh,
I know. It's all I had one can of lager, which has been in my fridge for about 6 months. So I think I'll have that one tonight.
Yes. No, I thoroughly enjoyed my time in Newcastle, but oddly, I've not been back since.
Really?
That's just weird. But having said that, kind of, there was some great pubs, kind of loads of character. Like the real old, old school type pubs. I don't know if they exist anymore.
Do you remember any of their names?
Fantastic. There was one down at the quayside called the Baltic Wine Cellar. Which is rough as hell. But sort of, there was never any trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, tell you what, you find that
the landlord. Yeah, but the landlord didn't want any trouble because sort of like he was so worried about being closed down.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I can tell you this story, but this guy hobbles in on crutches. You see, both his legs in plaster, and he manages to perch himself on his stool at the bar, and this other guy that was sat at the bar turns to him and goes, "What's happened to you then, mate?" I'm not going to do a Geordie accent.
You nailed it, man.
So I said, "What's happened to you then, mate?" He said, "Oh, I've had my kneecaps done, haven't I?"
Oh, really?
So, and you're sort of like, I'm stood nearby and I'm thinking, oh my God. Me sort of like a fairly green student.
For people watching at home, Newcastle's beautiful, man. You've got to come visit.
Yeah. Oh, definitely come back. It's a great city. My kneecaps are still intact.
You know, so there was some great, you know, I don't know. Some of the students just didn't like mixing with the locals, but I didn't. I really enjoyed it. You know, sort of like you get chatting to some of the guys in the pub and stuff like this. And I don't know. I mean, I'm originally from Hull, so I mean, you know, sort of. I guess it's the type of person I am. You know, I know people. You know, yeah, we speak different accents, but I think there's a lot of similarities between the type of people you get in Hull and the type of people.
Yeah.
I went to work there for a week once, and there's a live music venue in Hull, and what's it called?
Adelphi.
And I was there for a week, and I went to 3 gigs at the Adelphi in the whole week, and I loved it.
Legendary, the Adelphi.
I was there by myself, and everybody was so welcoming. I was like popping. You don't want to be sitting in a hotel room for the whole week, do you? So I thought, Adelphi, I'll pop down there, and went to see 3 bands. Can't remember what they were called, but I had such a good time. The people in Hull were really nice, like really enjoyed it. There, it was good.
Yes. So yes, I enjoyed Newcastle tremendously.
Oh, excellent.
Good stuff.
I think we're just about done, Neil, unless you've got anything else.
No, I'm done, thanks. Thanks.
Right. Well, Steve, thank you very much for joining us. It's been educating. I'm very much inspired. I'm going to go through my PlayStation games behind me and hunt out Broken Sword and have a game tonight before I go to bed.
Definitely.
But yeah,
we'll get the link. We'll get the links
Blond
posted
as
for you.
well, and Mr. Smuzzles goes nuts.
Yeah.
Will do, man. I'll look at them, man, and we'll have a game. No problem. Well, thank you very much.
Nice one. Thank you very much, mate.
You're very welcome. I've enjoyed it.
Take care.
Nice one. Cheers. You take care. Thanks.
Bye-bye, Steve.
Bye.